I'm primarily interested in doing is getting into the private equity market as a tech provider. We have built this massive agentic AI research system that can go out and find millions of data points across millions of pages on the web. On people who are 12 to 24 months from an exit, we come into their company and see where we can apply automated systems, where we can make their company more turnkey to greatly increase their valuation and really just set them up for the big exit. This tool that we've built in order to discover where different things come from. Like, where was the plastic that your trash can is made out of? What company was that made at? Where was the rubber that is in your tires? Where did that rubber actually come from? Where was it grown, right? And we're able to find that out. That's really where the value is. I'm lucky enough to have people saying I went through like 10 companies and I didn't think it could be done. I was about ready to give up on it entirely. And then I met Isaac and the Autonomy team and they just knocked it out of the park. It's amazing, you know.
How are you today?
Doing well, doing well.
Awesome, awesome. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, so I am calling in from St. Louis.
Amazing. I've never been to St. Louis. Where is that located?
Yeah, that's in Missouri, so it's like smack dab in the middle of the country.
It's in Missouri. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm in San Francisco. I'm pretty new to the US. Came here in 2018, so I haven't explored all of the places yet. But yeah, do you like Missouri? Are you born and raised there, or did you move?
Yeah, I mean, I've moved around a little bit. I just came back to Missouri like about 2 weeks ago after living a couple of different places. But yeah, it's an enjoyable place for sure.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining. Um, yeah, great to meet you. Before we dig in, I'll give you a little bit of context.
Okay.
I'm the founder of Imperial Arts, and we generally partner with B2B SaaS companies to help increase the revenue and profitability, mostly by acquiring new clients. That's our main focus. And this is why we're now interviewing leaders such as yourself, but also people previously from Mercedes-Benz and Cisco, to gain deeper insights into the market that we're in. And we're doing that while providing value back to you in the form of this podcast. It usually takes about 30 to 40 minutes. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that works. Have we already started or are we starting like after this?
We're rolling. If you would
Okay,
like to
perfect.
restart, we can.
Yeah, that would be good. I didn't know that we were going.
You're good. You're absolutely fine. Yeah, sure. So, welcome to the podcast, Isaac. You're currently running Autonomy, and
Yeah.
yeah, welcome. Why don't we start with and dive straight into autonomy and yourself? Like I understand autonomy provides artificial intelligence workflows. And could you share a little bit more and some insights into your business and the role you play within it and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Isaac Hicks. I am the founder of Autonomy, founder and CEO. So, I started Autonomy because I had worked in the consulting world for, a long time before this and had taken on a couple of different roles. And I really saw that a lot of the inefficiencies that existed within the organization were not a consequence of the personnel or consequences any or of anything else. It was really just about the systems and processes and the way that there was either a lack of systems and processes, they were very inefficient, and there were people who were just doing a lot of work that they really didn't want to do and nobody really wanted to do, right? And as artificial intelligence started to come up and it became more and more relevant in our lives, there was, a really good opportunity there to really help a lot of people out by getting rid of some of this very tedious, mundane kind of work, and then also increasing the efficiency, which increases the revenue of the organization, so everybody wins. So at Autonomy, we serve three distinct markets. We have our minimum viable product market. So this is anybody who is currently in a given industry. They see that there is some kind of need for a technical solution there, but they don't really have the means to do it themselves. We can come in and take from the base idea all the way through to the finished product. We have a couple of products that are out in the industry right now. We serve scaling companies specifically in around the Series A range whenever they're starting to grow very, very fast, but typically systems, processes, procedures, and workflows, those don't really keep up with the pace of sales. And so we come in to support that. And then finally, people who are 12 to 24 months from an exit, we come into their company and look at everything across the board, see where we can apply automated systems, where we can build these workflows, not only to make their company more turnkey, but also to greatly increase their valuation, make sure the handoff is less risky, and really just set them up for the big exit that they want to get.
Amazing. And can you walk me through like some of the past months that you've been through? How has your growth been in your company? What are kind of the key points that you've been focusing on lately?
Yeah, so growth has been really good. We've been expanding quite a bit, especially as we're moving into the next quarter of 2025 here. And yeah, I mean, really what we've been focusing on a lot is just really getting very strong marketing foundations down as far as, with the advent of AI, something that really happened is that cold outreach became much less successful. Everybody across the board, especially in the industry, is really, really struggling with cold outreach. And so, in order to really position yourself as an authority, somebody to sell, you have a couple of different options. Really, you should do all of them at once, but there's the content and then there's testimonials and referrals, right? And so we've really been looking at getting very high quality video testimonials from people that we've really helped and then using those extensively in our outbound. And then, of course, one of the other things that really helps with outbound is instead of going directly for the client, you go for people who also are in the same industry as the prospects, who might already have pre-existing relationships with prospects, just so you can leverage that warm invitation as opposed to going in completely cold.
So what is the secret formula now that it's not cold emailing?
Honestly, what I've seen in the market is there's really a reversion back to, kind of the old school way of doing things, right? So, a couple years ago, say like 5 years ago, you could set up an email marketing campaign. You could pull your list from your database. You could go off and you could make a ton of sales, get a ton of leads, ton of meetings. But that's just not really the case anymore. What it really is now is, you serve a client, you ask that client who they know, you get the referral from who they know, you get a really good video testimonial, you offer to provide some kind of value, some kind of, very high touch, very explicit value, something that really sets you apart from the market on your first outreach if you are going cold. And of course, in person works better than anything. So, whenever I first started going to networking events and things like that, that didn't really work. But networking events are making a big comeback, especially paid networking events. If you go to any kind of organization that is setting up a networking event that has some kind of price floor, that gets rid of a lot of people who aren't very serious. So if you pay $100 to be in a room, $1,000 to be in a room, everyone else in that room also spent that money. And the more money they've spent, the more they're trying to get something out of that room because they need to recoup their investment.
That's right. Yeah, we hear that a lot, and yeah, a lot of people want to invest in the right things. So, with that being said, what are kind of the current markets and I guess the trends in the market that you are aware of? Where are the winds blowing? What are you noticing in your industry right now?
So, so in the artificial intelligence space, there's kind of like three main like levels that I see, right? So there is the like AI automation agency, the people who are using things like N8N, Zapier, Make, and they're really just setting up these workflows that might make a call to OpenAI or a call to Anthropic or something like that. But they're relatively simplistic, architecturally speaking, and they're just automating very simple workflows. And you see a lot of kind of these individual characters, people who are not necessarily super technically minded, but, have a good head on their shoulders as far as being able to understand a workflow, a process is concerned. And then they typically will go after kind of this smaller business, kind of small businesses that, have simpler problems. Then the next level up from that is you have like AI systems engineering and AI systems engineers. And this is really the camp that I fall into, and where there's, what you're doing is you're not just creating a workflow to automate something simple. You're looking at a process more holistically. You're understanding the business dynamics behind it. And it's not just like, let me make a call to OpenAI in order to do this. It's that the AI is integrated into a full-blown application suite that has a back end, has a front end, has infrastructure. It's an entirely different paradigm. And then, of course, at the highest levels, you have the actual creators of softwares like OpenAI and Anthropic, the people who are building neural net technology, who are moving towards the next level as far as what's beyond transformer architecture. How far can we take the context window, and how do we actually make that happen? And I have played in that space a little bit as well, but that is a much harder market to break into, and you typically have to come from one of the bigger names that have established themselves, either as, somebody who's an employee there or as an ex-employee there, to really get that level of credibility. It's a very hard market to break into right now, of being one of those, those top contenders going up against somebody like OpenAI.
I guess you could look at it a little bit like, well, I hate to compare this to the crypto market, but the crypto market has like layer one, layer two, layer three. I guess you could compare it a little bit to that, where you have layer one being, OpenAI, Anthropic, Claude, like you were talking about, and then layer two, which I'm assuming you positioned yourself as, and then layer three being just like you said, making calls to these bigger players. What made you decide that this middle layer was the place to be?
Well, so why I went after the middle layer in particular is because, there's a lot of kind of excitement around the workflow automation stuff. And that does work, like building out Zapier workflows, make workflows, N8N, just doing like these very simple kind of no code integrations. They can get you very far when a business is in its early stages, like mainly looking at businesses that are like 1 million, $2 million maximum in revenue. And of course, these tools have their places in bigger organizations as well, but they're not really a solution for a larger organization. In order to create a solution for a larger organization, you have to take into account all sorts of different interactions that you're not really going to be able to handle as much unless you make very sophisticated multi-step workflows in some of these other tools. Because it's one thing to, build an automated response agent for your email box in order to respond to, different things. Then you hook up your email box to OpenAI and you throw a prompt at it. But it's a different thing entirely to create a system that, say, aggregates data from social media and perplexity research, does all of this different research to get very intense background information, studies the individual, studies their network to understand what the best method of getting into their network is, and then is able to find that person in their network and message that person in their network exactly what they need to hear to make the connection. That's an entirely different level of solution that you're not really going to get with just like the mid-market, or like the like automation no code tools. But that is the level of sophistication that is required to have something that's going to be really useful and really pivotal for a larger organization.
Absolutely. And there's so many ways to go here. You have so many uh, connections to make in your tool, all of these different databases to connect to, different data um, to get. So when you look at the next 6 to 12 months in your business, where do you see the biggest opportunities that you're really excited about? And let's focus about the biggest opportunities for growth for our business? Uh, and also, where do you see the biggest gaps that need to be fixed?
Yeah, so the biggest opportunities for growth in a business is really going to be about the reallocation of resource time. And so something that's really important to look at whenever you're a business owner, especially if you're a business owner that's beyond like that 1, 2 million range and you're starting to manage employees and have divisions and everything, is you really need to look at the task breakdown structure of your organization and look at what the total amount of work is that's required to get from point A to point B. And if you can find those places where artificial intelligence can be put to relieve some of that time burden, you can recycle that same time. And, I think there's this big idea that like, oh, AI is going to come in and it's going to get rid of all of the employees. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily need to do that. You can take those same employees and you can just drastically increase the revenue per employee that you have if you allow them to make their job significantly easier and significantly more efficient with these tools. And then, as far as growth is concerned, that frees up all of your cash flow. That cash flow can now be put into things like marketing, other types of positioning. I mean, revenue is vanity, but profit is sanity, right? And so if you are able to increase the profitability of the organization, that's really where the growth comes from in general.
Is
And
that
then,
something that, Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a follow-up question to that
Yeah.
exactly. Um, is that something you see as a as an opportunity in your own business as well?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. So we apply AI workflows like really all over the place inside of our organization. Our organization is relatively small for our revenue size and everything, just because we've been able to really leverage these tools as far as leveraging them for marketing, leveraging them for development, especially inside of development, because while the artificial intelligence is not good enough to just go out and build things completely on its own, you have to know what you're doing still a little bit. But being able to write boilerplate code, being able to write simple connectors, stuff like that, really all of the stuff that isn't the pure value that you're really driving with the tool, all of that infrastructure you have to build up to, you can just crank that out with artificial intelligence so quickly. And that's become a pretty integral part of our fulfillment workflow as well.
That's amazing. So with a healthy revenue in a company that has relatively not uh, too much of a bloat in your staff, how important is it for you to build more strategic visibility right now and get more clients? So whether that would be your branding or company positioning or just getting your story out there more clearly to ideal partners and clients, is that something you're currently looking into?
Well, so we pretty much do already have that handled, as far as like our outreach is concerned. We're actually fortunate enough to like have so much inbound and kind of, the way that we're sitting in the market that it's a little bit hard for us to take on additional capacity right now. So I mean, for the right clients, of course, we'll go ahead and reorganize things and see what we can get done. But really we're to the point where um, sales is not really the significant issue. It's really the ability to make sure that we can staff appropriately and that we do have everything in place to be able to handle our own growth as well.
So how easy is it to attract and retain high quality marketing team members or team members in other verticals?
So it's not easy. Yeah, there's definitely a pretty big gap in the marketplace as far as sourcing talent is concerned. I know that the job market has been a hot topic for a while, but what really has caused this is I feel like because artificial intelligence has come in and been able to create the value that it has been, it's like those who are able to harness that and be able to channel that value and have that value under their control, these are the people who are very hireable or very in demand in the market, whereas those who do not have this kind of familiarity or do not really know how to think about artificial intelligence in the way that's going to be valuable for companies, those are the people who are really going to struggle. And it's unfortunate because while there's a lot of education out there about, how the systems work and how to set up the systems and everything, I do not think there's a lot of education out there around what it means to actually provide value to an organization using artificial intelligence and what it means to deliver value using AI as a basis. And that's really the gap that's missing as far as hiring and retaining talent is across the board, whether it's marketing people, whether it's developers, whether it's more strategic leaders in the executive side. It's really been, difficult to find people who understand that it's like, even though, marketing is a numbers game, it's a numbers game with quality. And, you know, AI can crank out all sorts of stuff, but how do you channel that AI to create something that's of quality that you actually want to make a marketing asset for your organization? That's an entirely different ballgame.
Yeah, definitely having somebody who can ask the AI the right questions to get the results is super valuable. And asking the right questions requires the right talent.
Yeah.
So when it comes to building teams or scaling teams to help drive growth, do you prefer doing most things yourself, or are you more focused on finding the right partners and systems to take things off your plate?
So I mean, I typically so it is very hard to find individuals who understand like the problem fit very well for a lot of things that we end up doing as an organization because we're normally solving pretty niche issues. But I do like to leverage other teams where I can leverage artificial intelligence where I can, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, while I do have pretty demanding standards as far as my quality is concerned with the products that we release and the marketing that we send out and everything. Of course, if somebody can meet those quality standards, I'm not trying to hoard work. Nobody wants to hoard work.
Absolutely. Can you walk us through some of those problems that you're trying to solve for these niches, and where do you find the bottlenecks now in your business?
Well, so those are kind of two completely different questions because there's the question about like what kind of projects do we do, and then there's the question of what are the bottlenecks in the company. So I'll start with the first. So we've solved a wide variety of issues for our clients. I think one of the most interesting problems that we've solved is we have a client that is a supply chain traceability company. I won't name them, but what we do for them is we have built this massive agentic AI research system that can go out and find millions of data points across millions of pages on the web. And so this enables them to be able to have a more clear picture of what the transfer stack is in order for products to arrive at an organization. So as an example, if one of their clients is say a clothing company, it's like, okay, well, the clothes is made out of the cotton, the polyester, the dyes, the packaging, and then all of that, the actual raw materials of that gets sourced from somewhere else. And in general, we see 8 to 10 layers of supply transfer before you actually get to the final product that's going to go to market. And so there's kind of this hidden middle layer of all of these different organizations that all they do is sell subcomponents to other organizations. The vast majority of people would never be aware of these organizations, and we've been able to use this tool that we've built in order to discover very deeply, where different things come from. Like where was the plastic that your trash can is made out of? What company was that made at? Where was the rubber that is in your tires? Where did that rubber actually come from? Where was it grown? Right. And we're able to find that out using the system that we built. To address your second question, the biggest bottlenecks in my own organization right now are definitely the primary constraint is just being able to hire on people effectively who are able to do the work. And there's a little bit of lag time between whenever you bring somebody on and whenever they're able to really think at this kind of systems level when it comes to AI because the new value game is not in who can prompt the AI more intelligently. Like that's what everybody likes to market to, but that doesn't matter. What matters is being able to think about how an extensible system is created and like how you can use this as one tool in a series of tools to accomplish a complicated goal. That's really where the value is. And that's hard to find.
So if you had a magic wand that you could wave to solve, um, let's say 1 to 3 things, some of them you were talking about staffing, we can talk a little bit about what that staff would do. What would those things be?
Um, let's see. If I could solve 1 to 3 things with a magic wand. Um, so the first thing would be yeah, so the first thing would be being able to find and hire talent more effectively. The second one would be decreasing the sales cycle time of new leads. And the third one would be, hmm, the third one would be creating marketing assets that are more easily able to speak to the customer because there is a very large gap between the customer that needs a more advanced artificial intelligence solution and the ability to really, you know, I guess, discuss the value of that solution in a way that is going to resonate with them. Because while you can talk about the things that artificial intelligence can do, there are still parts of the market that are more nascent and don't understand just how powerful the tools are. And you, of course, don't want to sound hyperbolic while you still also want to be a competitive marketer. So there is a sweet spot there that's pretty narrow.
That's very interesting. So really looking for company positioning and getting the story right is pretty valuable to you as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it would be valuable to anybody in the AI space.
What does it mean with decreasing the sales cycles for new leads? Is it the onboarding or just vetting new clients?
No, so there at this point in the market, there's a bleed over that occurs where how we talked about those 3 tiers of solution providers before, right? So a lot of organizations have had a smaller solutions provider, somebody who, is more using these no code systems. And what they really needed was somebody who was able to create these more advanced systems, right? And those no code systems, there are places where those can create a lot of value. I'm not discounting that. But what I am saying is a lot of people who are in this market, they don't quite understand the limitations of what those toolkits can and can't do. And so they'll sell projects to people that are kind of outside of the scope of what they're able to offer. And then the market has had that experience several times at this point. And so whenever you go in, you're talking about being an AI provider for a lot of people who have been in that space and who have tried before. It's always like, oh, we've tried it before. It doesn't work. Oh, it's not good enough yet. Oh, it's, blah, 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 because they've had this bad experience before. And there is a significant amount of time that goes into building the prerequisite trust to show, yes, I understand you've had this experience before, but it's just because there's levels to artificial intelligence, and the level of provider that you were using before was not quite the level of provider that you needed. And the right sizing issue there is still very, very prominent because the industry is very new.
So these people that say it's not good enough yet, once they hop on with your business, what do they say? What's the reactions when you get them up and running?
Oh, I mean they're thrilled. It's like they can't believe it. I mean I'm lucky enough to have video testimonials of people saying exactly that, where they're like, yeah, I went through like 10 companies and I didn't think it could be done. I was about ready to give up on it entirely. And then I met Isaac and the Autonomy team and they just knocked it out of the park. It's amazing, you know, and that's the kind of content that you also need in order to go to the cold market and show them it's like, hey, look, this person was just like you. And I mean, you can call him if you want. I have his phone number, you know, because people are very skeptical right now. And then if they're not skeptical, they're scared, right? They're scared like, oh, what's going to happen to my data? That's always the big thing where it's like, oh, the if you're gonna use AI on my data, what are you gonna learn all my data and then I'm open for a
Yes.
liability or a breach or something like that? And you know, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how data processing with artificial intelligence works in that question. But you know, you have to go through the process of very kindly educating somebody that that's not really a concern that is worthwhile. You know, the bigger concern is how secure is my organization? Am I going to be able to actually handle that data? And then what do I do with it afterwards? Do I sell it off? Do I get rid of it immediately? That's what you actually need to be concerned about. But the processing through the artificial intelligence system, that part doesn't actually matter that much, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really seems like there is a disconnect both in how automation companies in AI market themselves, especially in your position where you have more advanced data, but also in the education aspect and educating the customers on how they can utilize you and what the benefits are. That is super interesting. So yeah, one thing we love about the leaders that we interview is that they're usually really open to new ways of solving old problems. Clearly,
Uh-huh.
your business does that today. How do you personally approach finding new strategies or partners to help drive growth in your business?
Yeah, I typically just start with a conversation, no expectation conversation, learn who the person is, what they're about, what they've done before. It really is a people to people kind of business. And, you know, if you talk to somebody, you can get a good feeling for how competent they are, how much of an authority they are, how much they know what they're doing, because, you know, I don't think fake it till you make it really works anymore. You know, I think it used to, but I think people have become a little bit smarter than that. And so, you know, if you really talk to someone, you get burnt a couple times, you're in the game for a while as a business owner, eventually you're able to have a conversation, look at a couple things, and unless they're really good at pulling the wool over your eyes, you know that there's value there and then you can pursue that value.
Yeah, so as a founder, I guess this is a two-part question as well. How are you currently spending your day? And if you would find these people to solve your pain points, how would that change your focus in your business?
Well, I mean, I primarily spend my day right now helping with client management. I am training some people up in order to help with that internally, so I'm not too worried about that. So a lot of client management. Sometimes I do a little bit of fulfillment work myself, but I've been building a lot of infrastructure for getting hiring processes together and everything in order to make sure that we can hire cold and hire well cold. Also doing stuff in offer design and stuff like that for some of my newer initiatives. Um, but I mean, as far as like what I would do if I was not doing that, I mean, always looking forward, always building, right? Because what I'm primarily interested in doing is getting into the private equity market as a tech provider because I feel like there's a pretty big hole there where if you can bring the operational edge and you know that you already have the operational edge because you're already bringing that to the table, then you essentially have de-risked the entire private equity proposition. And I feel like there's a very, very large opportunity there that I'm personally trying to pursue.
And I certainly hope that you get there and you find the solution providers that you seek. I always like to end these conversations with this final question, which is if there is anything that you'd like to share that I didn't ask.
Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose the only thing that I would really focus on is that AI is a reality. It's here. There's no beating it. nobody's going to beat it. So it's only about who is able to wield it the most effectively, and who is able to wield the tools the most effectively is who will win. And you want to be in a position where as the tool gets better, you get better at wielding it and you become more powerful. Because if you are in a position where if the tool gets better, you are in danger, then you've already lost.
Yeah, wonderful insights, wonderful insights. And with that, I need to say this was amazing, awesome insights. We rarely get somebody that's building AI and is so close to it on a daily basis. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, Isaac.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.